This is a one-speaker meeting. Please welcome our speaker tonight, Jeannie T.
Hi, my name is Jeannie. I'm an alcoholic. Hi, Jeannie. Gosh, what a crowd. This is a nice Wednesday night meeting, you guys. You're making it alive and fun to be well again. Gosh, look at these wonderful faces in here. I'm going to take a minute because I'm a little nervous here so I'm going to take and ask God to come in and take away my ego so I won't be so stressed, and have Him speak the words He'd have you hear tonight. So if you take that moment with me, thank you. Okay, gosh, I feel great now. I could unzip and show you everything. On the inside, I mean. I was born in... Ooh, that might be even... Oh, my gosh. I was born in Detroit, Michigan in 1938. Somebody talked about rigorous honesty up here. That's rigorous honesty. And I was orphaned very early. My mom and dad were already separated, at least in their own home. And when he got called back into the Navy because we were going to go to war, he dropped my older brother and sister, my mom, off at my grandmother's house. And they really were divorcing. That was their way of, he's going in the Navy, she can go do what she wants to do kind of thing. And so that went on for about a year. My dad was in the Navy. My mom went to downtown Detroit to a job that she worked at the Federal Building, downtown Detroit. She met some detective who was there to quell the race riots that were going on in Detroit at the time. All the men were away at war, or most of the men. And so this guy came from another state, and my mom decided she was going to leave with him. And she got us kids all dressed up to go, and my grandmother said, "You can go live a life of sin, but you're not taking these 3 beautiful babies with you. So you want to go, you want to get straight, you can come back and get your children." To this day, I've never laid eyes on my mother. My dad came back from the service, never got in touch with us. By that time, my grandmother had passed away of a massive heart attack 7 months after my mom left, and us kids were literally starving when St. Vincent de Paul stepped in. And I was in St. Vincent de Paul my whole life. Where I come from, back in all this Irish territory that I come from, they call it you were on the dole. Anybody that was on the dole meant you were on a charity case. And there was a certain amount of shame with that. I don't know if they meant it to be shameful, but I always felt ashamed by it, that I wasn't self-sufficient. I didn't know those words, of course. I was only 3 or 4 when this all started. My brother and sister were both separated from me through the course before I ever went to school. My brother was taken away from the people who lived across the street from us. We stayed with one aunt. He stayed with the other aunt. 2 sisters lived across the road from each other in country Michigan. And he decided he wanted to come and play with us one day. And she said, "No, I don't want you crossing that road," the lady he lived with, our aunt supposedly. And she said, "I don't want you going across and playing with them." And so we came out to play. He was playing in his yard, we were playing in our yard, and he decided this game would get us together without really playing together. He would spit across the road to us. It would fall at our feet. We'd go, "Wow, Olympic spitter, gosh, he's great." I'd try to spit and it'd all go down the front of me. He'd roar, and we were just having the best time with this little game when this lady came out. She grabbed my brother by the nape of the neck. She danced him up those steps to that farmhouse, and I never saw my brother again. And my sister was removed from this same house, almost the same way. The people were moving that we lived with. The sister we were living with was going to move. And we were going to be sent back to St. Vincent de Paul, my sister and I. So I'm sitting on our box of clothes. I hate these people that live in this house. I'm sitting on their porch. I don't like these people. I know my sister don't like them. We talk about it all the time when we go to bed at night. But I look at my sister, she's got this long, drawn face, and I'm thinking, well, why is she bugged, And I'm kicking the side of my box. I remember I'm reading Little Orphan Annie, where they had that dog named Sandy, and Daddy Warbucks with all the money, and that's probably where we're going to go next. And I'm looking forward to this, And when the social worker came to pick us up to take us back to St. Vincent de Paul, I got in the car. The box went into the car. Guess what? The door slammed. The lady started backing out. My sister was still on the porch. And when I saw my sister wasn't getting in the car with us, I blew up. She said my face turned beet red. Every time that car parked or went to a different position, I was at that window looking at my sister. She said, when I looked at you, my face was so beet red that she knew they would bring me back to her because she was the only one that could make me mind. She was 2 years older than she was like my little mother. When we walked someplace, she made sure she had my hand. And when I got in trouble, she tried to get me out of it. She tried to keep things from happening to me. And the reason they were sending me back was because I was getting her in trouble. She was a good little girl. I was in 12 different homes before I was 9 years old, so it tells you I wasn't a very good little girl. And, when I left my sister, it was like... I remember the next place I went to live, they kicked me out of the house for something I had done, sent me outside to play. And I sat in this little red wagon, and I thought about my sister being gone. And I thought about my brother being gone. And I sat in that little red wagon. I hadn't even started school yet. I was sitting sideways in the wagon, and I had the thing that steers it, like here. And I pushed that thing down like there's no sense in even steering your life because you're not going to go anyplace. And I put my hands on my lap, and I decided right then and there that it was me against the world. From then on, nobody was going to protect me. I had to take care of me. And that little tweak in my brain that protected me, that gave me the courage to keep doing what I had been doing, tweaked everything that happened to me from then on. Anything good, bad, evil, or wonderful that came through that emotional screen of mine was tweaked by that perception. Me against the world. Me against the world. Me against you. I could pretend, I could do all the stuff you told me to do, but guess what? When you said thou shalt not, that's when I wanted to. Don't tell me no, because that's just going to make me want it more. And I made that decision, which, like I say, built a wall around me. And I call it was like I sort of clothed myself in the armor of the adult. From then on, it was me against the world. If I wanted one ice cream, if I wanted vanilla, I better get 3 different flavors just in case, because I don't want to think I missed out on anything. And that's the sort of perception I brought to my drinking. 1 White Russian, better have 5. Mudslide, yeah, I think I'll have a double. And that's the kind of perception I had. And I always needed something better. I needed better marks in school, just to prove that, hey, I can do it. I needed more friends, just to prove that, hey, I'm a good girl. And all these things that I did was always colored by that little 3-year-old mind or 4-year-old mind, me against the world. And I grew up with that attitude, and I got pretty good grades in school. I went to Catholic school my whole life. Every home that I was ever put in was always Catholic, so I had that constant religion thing. I had an excellent education because of it. And the Catholic school was really good for me. I can't say, a lot of people complain about Catholicism, but, I never had any priest problems. Or nun problems. But anyway, when I was in the 11th grade, I decided that my girlfriend decided she wanted me as her lower companion. My girlfriend was kind of wealthy. Her uncle had a lot of money, and she had him sign me out of St. Vincent de Paul. I was 15 years old. I'd gone through the 11th grade, and when the summer was over, after we hitchhiked to Memphis, Michigan, I wish it was Memphis, Tennessee, we'd hitchhike to Memphis in our little crisp white blouses, go drinking with the boys, come hitchhike back home. Her mom was an alcoholic. Well, I can't say that, but Zita, she was in the bar every night. And she was never home, so we just kind of roamed and did what we wanted to do, and it was a safe time and a safe place in those days when we did that kind of thing. And so when the summer was over, I remember Zita taking her 2 daughters Bernice and Stella in the kitchen going, she's wearing our white blouses, and, you know, she's doing this, and they were whispering, you know, when you hear people whispering in the kitchen and you ain't in there, you know it's about you. And sure enough, Bernice said to me like 2 days later, Jeannie, I guess you're going to have to move, you know. And so I moved down to Port Huron, Michigan with Bernice's brother's girlfriend, and we lived in a little tiny one-room house that we shared, of a house that we shared with other people that they rented to us. And I went to work at Coney Island hot dog stand thinking, well, I'll work here a couple months, I'll be able to go back to school, you know, finish my education, the 12th grade. And he came in. He was from the next state over, Ohio. How exotic is that? And he sat in my station. He was tall, dark, and handsome. Just the way well, he was only dark and handsome, but 2 out of 3 aren't bad. And he was a big tipper. He was tipping 25 to 50 cents for every hot dog that he ate. And he always sat in my station, and he liked me. And I went, oh my God, look at this guy. And so he asked me out. He took me to the drive-in. And so my sponsor made me look at all this stuff is why I can reiterate some of these incidents that I'm going to tell you about. She said, Jeannie, you were 15 years old. You'd hardly ever even dated. You know, you lived in a Catholic home that didn't let you out at night. Did you love this guy? How did you... You married him 3 weeks into knowing him. Did you love him? And I had to think about it. Did I love him? And she made me write about it because that's what sponsors do. And she said, I want you to write about, did you love this guy and what promoted you to marry him? And so, well, I told you he was tall, dark, and handsome. Well, dark and handsome. I told you he was a big tipper, so that told me he was generous. I told you he liked me, so, you know, that's a plus. And I married him because he worked at the post office. He told me he worked at the post office, and I went, fantastic, work at the post office. That's not just a job, that's a career, you know. Everybody whose kids worked at whose mom and dad worked at the post office, they came to school better clothes. You know, their house had that nice warm glow coming from the living room. They always had the big porch where they all sat out and had their little cocktails at 7 o'clock at night, you know. I'm thinking, post office, what a thing, it's a career. And so I put that down on my little clipboard. And also, he wasn't angry. And she said, well, how do you know he wasn't angry? You've written down here he wasn't angry. I said, well, one time he took me to the drive-in, and I had read some romantic novel, and they talked about a Caesar salad, and they talked about it having anchovies in it. And the essence, that flavor that came up to the nostrils, and I thought, what a wonderful vegetable this must be, anchovies. You know, I'm in the Midwest. We don't know nothing about anchovies in a salad. You know, we chop, you know, vegetables in a salad. And so we went to the drive-in. We stopped at the liquor store, and they're going to, and I'm saying, he's looking at the popcorn, potato chips and stuff, and Cokes, and I'm thinking, gosh, they got anchovies here. Look at this. It's a can of anchovies. Gosh, it's, you know, they're wonderful. They smell the essence. I mean, remember those words that I'd read. And so I said, do you think we could get a can of anchovies? And he goes, well, what's an anchovy? I said, well, I don't know, but I think it's some kind of vegetable. It goes in salads, and it's delicious. Absolutely, you know, they're wonderful. And he said, well, how much are they? And I said, well, they're 10 cents a can. And he said, get 2. Big spender. I like this guy. Get 2 cans. So I said, okay. So now I already got the ism, even though I'm not drinking yet. I'd had a couple 7 and 7s at weddings when I was a kid, you know, whatever. A couple beers maybe, but no real drinking yet. And so I got this can of anchovies. I need it now. I mean, I can't wait to get to a freaking drive-in to eat these anchovies. You know, my mouth is watering. I got the ism. And so I'm trying to open this anchovy, and I can't get it open. And so he says, well, reach in the glove compartment there and, you know, get the, I think I got a pliers in there. I'll help you. And so while he's driving, he's trying to open these anchovies with his pliers, and the oil spurts out, and everything stinks in the whole freaking car. And he's looking at me like, if she thinks this is delicious, hello. and you know, and I'm going, oh, I'm so embarrassed and ashamed. Well, he didn't get angry. So he's got no anger issues. I've been in enough homes where there's strange men around. You know, something happens, ding, it's a curse swear, and, you know, people are mad. Well, he didn't have any anger. He was a very sweet, nice man. So when he asked me to marry him, of course, I said yes. So all these things I put on this clipboard to give to my sponsor and tell her why I married this guy and that I really did think I loved him. And so we got married 3 weeks into our relationship. He had to take me to Angola, Indiana to marry me because I wasn't old enough in the state of Michigan. And my girlfriend's uncle had to sign me out of St. Vincent de Paul in order to marry him and to go across the state line with him. And we got married in Angola, Indiana. We drove home. We got a little tiny apartment upstairs in somebody's house with linoleum floors, and I've got my little apron on because it's the 50s. And I'm scoring the Spam that we're cooking for dinner that night, and I'm going to put cloves in it so it tastes more like ham. I'm going to bake it, put a little grape jelly on top, and give it a little glaze. And he comes in and he goes, "Guess what?" Well, you know me, I love surprises. I said, "What?" He said, "The job at the post office is finished." I went, "Finished? What about that wind, rain, sleet, and snow shit? You know, finished? What are you talking about? That's a career. That job is never..." He had failed to tell me he was painting the post office, and the job was over. He and his crew were going to head back to Ohio, which I found out wasn't very exotic. And we took that road trip by selling the rear tire, or the spare tire and wheel. He got like $20 for it, and that got us gas money to go back to Ohio. And, you know, and he got a job. He got a little job that didn't pay enough, and I got a little job working at a jewelry store, my first big job, real job, other than Coney Island. And because we couldn't hardly make enough money between us to pay our rent, he went back into the service. He'd been in the 82nd Airborne. I found out after our marriage that he'd been married before. Didn't know that when we got married. I thought I was the fabulous first. And so to tell you a little bit of already about my perception in my life, I turned my back on the only constant thing I'd had my whole life. When we married, I married outside the Catholic Church because I felt if this doesn't work, because we knew each other such a little bit of time, that if it doesn't work, I could eventually divorce him, get married in the Catholic Church, you know, have my babies Catholic, blah, blah, blah. So my first major decision in life was already tweaked, you know, twisted by that tweak I have in my brain, protect myself and make sure I can, you know, set all my ducks up. Control. So now we're married. He goes back into the 82nd Airborne. We're shipped to Germany. This is in 1959, 58. My first baby was born December 27th, 1957 in North Carolina, Fayetteville, North Carolina. My second baby was born December 28th, 1958 in Heidelberg, Germany. My third baby boy was born in February of 60. We missed 59 by 2 months. And he was born in a Army hospital in Germany. So now I've got 3 babies. They're all under the age of 3, and they're all in diapers, and they're all, I think, still on the bottle. Maybe the one boy, Larry, might have been off by then. And I was overwhelmed. Here I was, a person who had never been nurtured. I could take care of the physical part of the babies, but when they wanted more from me, guess what? I just didn't have it. The only time I made amends to my son later in years, and the only time I really felt filled up with love for my children was when they were sound asleep or in bed or taking their nap. I'd go in and really look at them and go, God, he's a beautiful little boy. And I love my boys. I wanted to do nothing but grow up and have babies. I was going to marry him. I was going to have a family. That's what I was raised to do. I didn't dream that there was another way because I was raised by people that that's all they did. And so I never had a clue about even working. Working was something you did until he could make it, you know, until he could let you stay at home and have those babies. And so by the 3rd year in Germany, our relationship was over. This poor guy, when I talk in AA, I tell, This poor guy never saw me naked. Now half the world has seen me naked. But because I lived in so many foster homes where I had to keep covered up, etc., I never just felt my body was beautiful and I could parade around. I just never had that kind of an inkling. When I was home alone, I would go into the bathroom and leave the door open just enough so the bedroom light could come in so I could see to change my clothes. So this poor guy, I didn't know it could be fun. And so he's doing a lot of what a lot of guys do when you say no at home. He's staying out late at night. And I don't care because to me, saves wear and tear on me as far as I'm concerned. And I really didn't care. I wanted to go to bed. I wanted to go to sleep. Don't bug me. And so, he didn't have a very cooperative wife, put it that way. So now when we're headed back to the United States, he's going to be sent to a new tour of duty over in Kansas City, Missouri, and I ain't going to Kansas City with no man. I've been across country with this guy once before. I ain't going again. And so he went to his new tour of duty, dropped me off at my girlfriend's uncle's house, who had built a house for one of his daughters. She had moved on and gotten married, and so now I'm moving into that little house. I look back at that time really as the best time of my life. I've got my 3 little boys. I have that allotment check coming in. I can spend it any way I want. He's off on his tour of duty, Kansas City, Missouri. Good luck. And I'm going to live happily ever after. I got my few friends in the world who I haven't seen in about 3.5 years, almost 4 years. They've been married and got kids, and one of them's divorced. And so I got my little buddies that we could play cards at night. I got that allotment check coming in. It lasted about 5 months. One day I went to get that allotment check, no check. And right away, that anxiety came up and that alcoholism showed. And I thought to myself, what am I going to do now? All of a sudden, I remembered I was Catholic, and I went to visit Father Farrell, the priest who had kind of raised me in the last 4 years of my life. And Father Farrell gave me some money, and he went to the Red Cross, and the Red Cross gave me some money, and I'm in touch, trying to keep in touch with this husband, or get in touch with this husband to find out what the hell happened. I found out through the Army, with his number and all that he had gotten an early discharge. It was called a hardship discharge. He had sent to Germany for that girl he'd been seeing back there. He was living in Kansas City, Missouri. He was going to try to open a new business, and that business didn't flourish the way he thought it was going to flourish, and so we were the ones left out of the money. And one day there was a knock on the door when I was going through this rigmarole. We were literally starving in this house by this time, and I opened the door, and there's 3 people with beautiful boxes of food out there. They were from the town next to me, Memphis, Michigan, where my girlfriends and I used to hitchhike. And they had these boxes of food and stuff. And I thought, what the heck? I thought they were selling something at first. And then they said something like the words were, we heard there was a family in trouble here, and we've brought you, some things we've collected. A wave of shame came over me because here I am on the dole again. Here I am a charity case again. Here I am, it was like a slap in the face. I was incapable of taking care of my own children. Here I am. It hits me to my core that I'm incapable of being a mother or taking care of my kids. And I'd like to tell you that I invited these lovely people in and was very gracious and thanked them for it. I was very grateful for this food, and the kids were too, but I didn't have, because of that shame and that guilt and that pain that I'm trying to describe to you, I didn't have the clarity to be gracious, and they set it down. I let them say what they had to say, and I kind of ushered them out. When the door closed behind them, the kids and I danced around that food, and we were grateful for it. They helped me put it away, and they got their little Cracker Jacks with the little toys that they brought for us and stuff, and we were like crazy. Oh, we got food again. And the kids were. I was being very demure, I'm sure. And but this feeling stayed with me, this guilt, this shame, this pain. Looking at my kids, I'm thinking, what am I going to do? I just had no alternatives. The people that had lived next door to me were crossing the street when they saw me get up in the morning because they didn't want to see. They couldn't take care of themselves, and me too. And how that's got to pain them to just be next door to it when they can't do anything about it. And 3 days later, there was another knock on the door, and this time there was 3 more beautiful people like you guys, and I'm thinking to myself, what do they think, we're gluttons here? Because my food was already filled there. And this time I opened the door, and this time they were from the other town next to us, Port Huron, Michigan, which was about 19 miles away, and it was about 50,000 people, which was a big conglomerate to me, you know, it was a big place. And I wanted to know what they wanted, because they didn't have no boxes, and they said they were from ADC, Aid to Dependent Children, and they were going to come and take my children. And they said words. The minute they said, take my children, you know, my head started ringing. I couldn't really hear what they were saying. I could see their mouth moving, but a rage came in me, a guilt came in me, a shame came in me, and I said, you cannot take my children. They said, we heard you were starving here. And I'm sure they said things like, you don't have an education, you can't get a job that'll make enough money to support your children and work, you can't pay a babysitter and take care of these kids while you work, you blah, blah, blah. And they were telling me the litany of the things I couldn't do, which, believe me, had been running in my mind for a long time, the things I couldn't do. And the man, there was two women and a man, and the man walked behind me and walked past me into my kitchen. And I thought, well, they're trying to, you know, my head is spinning with what's going on. And he went into the kitchen, and I thought he's going to see if I'm clean enough, you know, and I was spick and span. And, but he opened the cupboard doors, and he saw them filled with food. And when he came back in, he said, well, she's not hurting. Her cupboards are filled with food. They're not starving. So they couldn't take my children. They couldn't take my children on that visit, and they left. And I went, thank God. But now I call Father Farrell. We finally did get in touch with my husband that same afternoon, and I said, you better get over here, and you better either send me some money or you better come and get the kids, because that's where I was at. I mean, that's where I was at. I had no other choices. And he came across country and got the kids. And I must tell you, face to face right now, that he looked at me and he said, Jeannie, you can come too. We'll get you an apartment. You can help take care of the children. And I looked at him and I thought to myself, never again. I got in the car with him once. I ain't going there again. And my thought process was, I'll get a job. I'll save some money. I'll get an apartment. I'll get my kids. And, you know, for the next 3 or 4 years, that never happened. But every time I went to visit those kids in Kansas City, I'd take a Greyhound bus, and every time I took that Greyhound bus, I needed a little bigger bottle of something to get me there. And by the 3rd year, I was absolutely snockered when I got off that bus the last time. You know, there was a cute little guitar player playing in the back seat, and I'm thinking to myself, you know what? This guy likes me. I don't have any makeup on. I've been up for 3 days cleaning house, make sure it was spick and span. And, you know, I'm going to put some makeup on. I think I'll put my eyelashes on. You know, this guy's going to love this. And so I get back on get out of that bathroom, get back on that bus, and the bus is gone. Because I just had one little white cross too many, you know. And you have to be in that mirror a little longer than you thought you were. And so it's 16 hours to the next bus that goes to Kansas City, Missouri. And what are you going to do? I saw this big sign said lounge, and it kept blinking back and forth. I went, yeah, that's my kind of home. Now, those 4 years, I've been working in a bar. My girlfriend's uncle happened to own a bar, and it was like the hip spot in town. And we had all the big bands come through, you know, and we made a lot of money. I was a hostess because I wasn't old enough to bartend. And so I know the wildlife by now, you know. I know those white crosses that are swirling around Detroit and Michigan area, you know, with all those factory workers and truck drivers, etc. And there's a few things going on. I'm not part of that. I'm pretty much a purist, but I do take a white every once in a while just to stay up long enough to clean my house good. And especially when I'm going to go see the kids, I know I have to. And so this particular time, by the time I got to Kansas City, Missouri, you know, I was a wreck. I've been tipping everybody at that bar for 15 hours, telling them, make sure I get on that bus. I missed the bus to go see my kids. Please, you're the bartender. Make sure if that bus comes and I happen to be sleeping on my arm, get me out of here and get me on that bus. And so everybody's promising they will, and they did. They got me on that bus. And the next 5 hours until I got to my husband, you know, I tried to nap on that bus, but I really couldn't because I was too wired. And when I got off that bus, my husband looked at me, and instead of a shameful, nasty, angry guy like he sometimes was when he saw me high, he said, "Jeannie, I don't know what you're doing to yourself, but every time you come, there's a little less of you." And you know, that was like a moment of clarity, not my own, directed by God to me. You know, I felt it in my heart. He wasn't saying it nasty. He was saying it almost with some concern. He hadn't had any concern for me since I, you know, told him take the kids and go. And so he said, "I can't bring your children to you looking like that. You can't have your kids when you're looking like that." And he said, "I'll take you to a motel." And he took me to this little motel, and he put me in there, and he said, "I'll be back tomorrow." And he came back the next day and knocked on that door, but I was so out of it that I didn't even wake up. And the third day he came back, and guess what? I thought it was the next day, you know, and I, "Oh, hi, how you doing? I feel better, blah, blah, blah. Where's the boys?" And I looked out the window past him, and I saw the boys. You know, they were in the car with him and Carla the midget. And, and they were sitting in the back seat, and the midget was sitting in the front seat, where my seat. And my husband said, I can't bring the boys in." He said he had a briefcase with him, and he sat down at the little round table in that little hotel room or motel room, and he said, "Sit down." And I sat across from him, and he pushed some papers across to me, and he said, "Jeannie, every time you come here, there's, you know, you're worse off than you were the last time. Every time you come, you promise these boys you're going to come the next time, you're going to take them with you. All week long for 3 weeks after you leave, all those boys can say is, 'I don't have to do that. My mom's going to come and get me. I ain't doing that. You can't, you're not my mom. You can't tell me what to do.'" The midget didn't like that very well. And he said, "You come, you see that they got a good life with us. We're 3 blocks from the dang school that they go to. You see them go off to school hand in hand. You see their little trophies for the games that they're doing and how well they're doing in school." He said, "Every time you come, you just disrupt our lives." And he said, "They'd be much better off if you just signed these papers and let Carla and I take care of them." And I looked at him, and I'd like to tell you that I wanted to go to every court in the country and fight for those kids, but the truth of the matter is, those words gave me a sense of relief. For the first time in my life, I could see that I wasn't going to have to try to do this the way I was trying to do it. And when he put those papers across to me, I signed those papers, and I closed that book and handed it back to him. You know, when he put me on that Greyhound bus without saying goodbye to my kids, because I couldn't, because I didn't have the courage to say goodbye to my own children, even though he offered me. When he put me back on that bus, I cried from Kansas City to Port Huron. But in that crying jag, I said to myself, I'm going to close the door on that part of my life. From then on, if you said, "Jeannie, do you have any children?" I'd say, "Yeah." Have you ever been married?" I'd say, "Yeah." "Do you have children?" I'd say, "No." Because who better than I knew what kind of a sin it was not to take care of your own children? Who better than I knew what my boys were going to go through because they weren't going to have a mother just like I didn't have a mother. And I did what it talks about in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. I closed the door on that portion of my life. And when I got back to that Port Huron, that my hometown kind of thing, the guy who owned the bar next to ours used to come in every night, and he'd count heads just to see how good we were doing compared to how good he was doing. And one day George Joseph came in and he said, "Jeannie, you're never going to make enough money in this town to get your kids." He said, "I heard they're opening a Playboy Club down in Detroit. Why don't you go down there?" I said, "George, I can't afford to fucking pay my rent. How am I going to go down to Detroit and get a job?" He said, "I'll bring you the money. If you don't get the job, you won't owe me the money. If you get the job, you can pay me back the money." And the next day he came in and gave me $100. I got on a Greyhound bus. I went to Detroit. I got a little room in a young women's club. It was a religious club. And all the girls that lived there, you know, were studying to be nurses and secretaries, et cetera, going to school. You know, I'm going to bunny school. And I got hired at Playboy, and, you know, came up those stairs after the bunny mother told me that I was hired and tried that little costume on me and said, oh, her legs, you know, they were like cow. I was like a cow. They were, oh, she got good legs. Turn around. Oh, you could lose a little weight, maybe around the waist, you know, blah, blah. And I didn't care what they said. When they said I was a bunny, I flew up those stairs because by now I had seen Playboy magazine. I'm going down to be a bunny. I'm going to read up on it. And has anybody got a Kleenex? My bunny mother was Claire Elias, who started Elias Brothers Big Boy. Her and her husband were getting divorced down in Detroit at the time. Thank you. And she was our bunny mother. She was great. She hired me. And when they hired me, they gave me this little clipboard. It was the same thing that when the Playmate, you know, when you open that thing of the Playmate, not that you guys ever do the reading part of it, but there's a place in the back that tells her whole bio, you know. Oh, she's blonde, 5'7", you know, she's gone to college, she's this, she reads, and they had that same thing for me to fill out. I lied through it all. What's your favorite book? Mein Kampf. I'd heard about it in Germany someplace, you know. What do you like to do on your days off? Oh, I play tennis, I horseback ride, you know. Very much into going to I almost said casinos. What do you see? I can't even say it, so you know it was a lie. And I just wrote this whole beautiful story of who would I wanted to be, you know. And I mean, they published it and everything. They believed it. And I flew up those stairs. Now I got that badge that we all need. We got to know we're something special. We got a little something going for us, an edge, you know. And that's how I got to you. I needed that edge. I worked for Playboy 15 and a half years. I flew that big black jet, the Playboy Bunny jet. I opened new clubs for half all over the country. I opened 11 clubs. I traveled all over. I transferred out here from the Detroit club, my last home club, which was my first club that I started at. And I came out here to California. I had a 10-day leave of absence. Playboy paid for all my stuff to be moved. I lived with, I came out here with a friend of mine, Sharon Kane. Bunny Dolly was her name. Sharon is Dean Kane's mom, and her kids were just little boys at the time, Dean and Roger. And, you know, life was great for 15 years. Everybody entertained me. I needed a lot of entertaining. You know, if you were my friend, you better talk fast and play hard because I needed a distraction. I needed something to distract me from who I was. I needed something to keep me from thinking about what I looked like, who I was. I wanted to have some fun, and you better create it. Otherwise, I'm kicking you to the curb. And that's just the feeling I had. I had to be going. I opened the door to the bar, dirty bars, you know, red carpeted, but you don't see the red anymore, you know, bars. Bars that stink, that's the kind of bars I want. I might start out at the Polo Lounge, but I ended up down at the Prince of Wales or the Harbor Room. Hello. Bar Melody was another one. I love that Bar Melody. The things that go on in that parking lot, I could tell you a story or two. And this was my life. I had to be entertained. I had to be kept busy. I had to tire myself out so I could go to bed. You know, if you were there, perhaps. If not, you know, it ain't all that fun. Remember me? And so this was my life. I was on that treadmill, and that treadmill was going faster than I could keep up. And one day I went to work. I lived next door, conveniently located next door to a guy who was 6 months sober. He happened to be my bartender at the Marriott Hotel, which is where I'm working now. I'm manager of the lobby bar. I meet people from all over the world, and guess what? I go drinking with them. And I go drinking with 3 shifts of people every night. And one of those shifts of people happened to be Jay's wife, Jackie Stinnett. Jay's 6 months sober, right? He's still got the shakes. I know, he's an alcoholic. But a year goes by, Jackie and I go out every single night. We hit all these dirty old bars I'm telling you about, you know. She's drinking beer out of long neck bottles. I'm drinking bowls full of Southern Comfort on crushed ice or whatever, you know, chapter 3. And Jackie's still drinking those Coors or those Coronas, a little lime in it. She drinks it right out of the bottle, though. We think that's kind of cute. And when she tells me, she comes to work one night, she's my bartender now because Jay's gone. He's selling tea someplace or gold. And Jackie comes in one night, she says, guess what? I said, what? She said, I'm 30 days sober. I went, Jackie, you? Shit. I had to go over and drink a big shot of this top shelf margarita I got going on in a bus pan over at another corner just to talk to her about her going to AA, because I don't even want to hear that word. And I come back and I wipe the salt out and I go, Jackie, you? Shit, you're a lightweight. If you're going to AA, you better save me 2 seats. I'm joking, kind of, because I can't even fathom the truth. And I went, you better save me 2 seats because you're a lightweight. And I go back and I have another big swig of that margarita. Shit, Jackie's going to AA. I cannot believe that. Wipe the salt off. So, Jackie, tell me, what about this? It was like spitting up a fur ball. I couldn't even say alcoholic. And I said, well, Jackie, of all people, she goes out with me. We're out till 4 or 5 o'clock. We're playing hide and seek with the bartenders at 4 o'clock in the morning, down at the Grunyons or wherever. And so she goes, yeah, I'm sober 30 days. I said, well, Jackie, you of all people know that if you belong in AA, I'm definitely an alcoholic. And she said, oh, I know. She said, but don't come till you're ready. She said, they have slogans and statements. They got shit hanging on the walls. They got bumper stickers. She said, they got a language of their own. And don't come till you're ready because, you know what? They mean business there. And I went, Jackie, crying out loud. So she says, well, guess what? I'm going to take care of you, like I'm going to hook you up. We didn't even have that language then, hook you up. But she said, I'm going to take care of you, Jeannie. We're best friends. She lives right next door to me. When Jay goes to a meeting, Jackie knocks on the wall. When I hear that knock, I start putting my makeup on. That means Jackie and I are going out tonight. Now she's gone. What am I going to do? God, nobody's going to alert me. It's bar time. And so the next day, she brings this big book of Alcoholics Anonymous in to me, because she wants me to have the edge. And she writes in there, Dear Jeannie, I understand that this program actually works, and I'm praying that it'll be working for the two of us one day. And you know something? That touched my heart for some reason. That penetrated that big wall I have. That penetrated that separation that I have from you and me. And that showed me that, God, she cares about me. She's concerned about me. She's not doing it for any other reason than that she loves this program and that she wants it for me too. So I decided I better read this book. I go home, I start reading it, and I did just like you did. I started at the back of the book. I started reading those stories. And I started reading those stories, and when it got to the place where, you guys described your pain and I identified with that pain, I had to put that freaking book holding my, my couch up, keeping the door open in a party, putting my wine on it or whatever. That book did not want to go into my face again until about 3 months later, and I'd go through that book every once in a while, but when it touched that pain, shit, I couldn't take it anymore. One night, not on any other night, I'm drinking like crazy. I come home, I'm drunk. The people that are with me are drunk. They get in a big fight. Everybody leaves my apartment. I crawl upstairs, go to the guy next door. He loves to see me at 4 o'clock in the morning. He's feeding his parrot. He smokes dope. I don't smoke his dope. He makes me a little vodka. I was so drunk, sitting in this beanbag, when he finally threw his wooden leg at me, that he said, and he gave me that look, like, you piece of shit look, and I wanted to get up and get out of there. I couldn't get out of that freaking beanbag. He hopped on one leg, went into bed, and I had to lay there for 2 hours in my stinkingness. And when I went downstairs that day, I thought to myself, you know what? I better read that chapter of how they do it. Today I know it is chapter 5 and how it works. And I started in the front of the book this time, read the doctor's opinion, really identified. It gave me some relief because I could see there was somebody else that had what I have. I wasn't alone in what I was doing. And then I read Bill Wilson's story, which is just lit up my life and gave me some hope. And then I read that part, how they do it, chapter 5 and how it works. And when I got to that part where it says A, B, and C, God could and would if he were sought, I put that book across my chest. By this time it's 3 o'clock in the morning, and I look up to that God, that Catholic God, that helped raise me. And I said, dear God, you know what's going on inside of me, and you know what I'm protecting, and you know that there's people who've been in my life for 30 years, including Jackie and Jay, that don't even know I've had children. My whole life has been a freaking lie. How can I come clean? How could I present myself, even if I got sober? You better come in and not just remove my obsession, but you better come in here and you better let me know you're there, because I know I can't do it on my own. That's a heartfelt prayer. I had what they call in Alcoholics Anonymous a bush-burning variety of a miracle. I had the miracle that cleansed my heart and soul. My stomach rearranged itself. The parts that produced those babies went back into place. God put me back together physically, and I felt every move of it. I had to go, oh, I got it. Stop already. I really had to stop him. I knew he was there, and I had to stop him because I couldn't take any more. I went to sleep that night, and I've never had a cocktail since. I've never had an adult beverage. I've never had anything except a little hit off of an outside issue when I was about 1.5 years. I really got sober in '86. I only claim that I'm 21 years clean and sober, because this is the kind of program we have here. We got to be squeaky clean. If you're within the sound of my voice, you had the same kind of miracle I have. It might have been decorated a little different, but you're here, you've had the same miracle. Those children, when I did that 9-step letter, have been brought back into my life. My middle son was the first to make a call. None of my grandchildren, I've been 22 years sober without a cocktail. None of my grandchildren have ever seen me take a drink. I had a son who didn't come back into my life for 15 years into my sobriety. But you know what? I needed it when he came back into my life. He was my youngest son and knew me the least. Carla was really his mother. That midget. I love Carla today. I love Carla today. I love my family, who I created. My sponsor told me, take responsibility for yourself. You can't be that poor little orphan girl on a pity pot. You want an education, go back to school. I have a totally different career today because I went back to school and did the little bit of work you taught me to do here. I did those steps to the best of my ability. Everything has been restored to me. My children have found forgiveness that I couldn't even imagine having for their mom. They respect me. They love me. My husband died last Friday morning. That husband, Bert Lane, who I didn't know if I loved or not. Guess what? When I did my amends to him when I was 7 years sober, I flew into Kansas City to meet him, and I went around the back of the building where was his restaurant, and he was bringing some supplies in, and I had this long winter coat on, and I walked back to him, and he saw me coming, and I looked at him, and I said, you don't recognize me, do you? He said, I heard you were in town. And I walked up to him and I did what you guys taught me to do here. I gave him a hug. I didn't have the shame of having left my children behind. I didn't have the shame of giving him the total responsibility of raising my children. I walked up to him with pride and clear-headed, and I looked him in the face. I gave him that AA hug that you guys taught me to do. I held it a little bit longer. When I backed away from him, he had a little bit of a grin on his face, and I thought, I did love this guy, and I gave him another hug. I did love this guy, and I totally loved him. He died Friday morning, and I've been reading his obit. I didn't go back. My middle son said there'll be enough drama there. My husband happened to be married 5 times. He's now married to a drug addict, or was before he passed away. And he said, there'll be enough drama there. You don't need to be there, Mom. And I'd rather save that time to be with my kids on a better occasion. 4 of my grandchildren, my youngest son, the one that took 15 years to get to me, his wife Heather, and my 4 grandchildren spent 4 days in Disneyland. They adore their grandmother because I buy them anything and everything they want. And, and they look at me and they said, Grandma, you look like an angel. I was in my white nightgown. He said, Grandma, you look like an angel. And I said, if you only knew. And, this is what you guys did for me. You gave me a new face. You told me my first week of sobriety that you are the architect of your own life. You can create whatever life you wanted. I thought I was over the hill. I was 48 years old. I'm 71 today. I'm just beginning to live. I love life. I want to live to be 100. Don't buy any insurance on me because it'll never pay off in your lifetime. You know, I came to you looking for love, and for the first time in my life, I feel safely held. And I want to thank you all for that. Thank you.